So, we have Forest for Tomorrow. Again in 2008, the promise was 60 million seedlings over 4 years. 60 million seedlings over 4 years. The program was put in place in 2004. And again, these are real numbers available to the government. It's not that hard to go and Google Forest for Tomorrow. It's all there for you. PricewaterhouseCoopers does a little report for you. Only about 17.85 million trees have been planted since 2004. 60 million tree promise. 17.8 million realized. Now, I think that's called what? A silviculture gap? Again? If this is how they're going to do zero net deforestation, no wonder we laugh on this side. Promise 60, deliver 17.8. Madam Speaker, I am the designated speaker. They're not going to achieve 20 million a year, which is what the minister and others have suggested. So now, in this throne speech, and the minister are promising, or the Forest for Tomorrow, they're promising 60 million over the next 4 years. That's not going to happen. One of the interesting things about that, and it's a question that we'll have when we explore this in third reading, one of the interesting questions is they use PricewaterhouseCoopers to run that program, not Ministry of Forests. So why did an accounting firm and a financial management firm get to run silviculture in this province? Did the government not trust the Forest Service to do that?
There is no Forest Service.
So we don't have the federal money. We have PricewaterhouseCoopers delivering, and I would say taking very hefty administrative fees to deliver what is the minuscule amount. And, Madam Speaker, that's a tragedy. So let's get to the bill quickly, because I know we've got speakers who want to get up on our side. First off, the Liberal arguments for the bill, independent of it's the right thing to do, are first, it's principled. Well, if it was principled, we would have the strategy, the plan, the implementation, the resources, the cost. We'd have it all laid out in front of us. If it was principled, that would be it. It wouldn't be trust us. We'll do this by regulation. Because there's a trap in doing it by regulation, Madam Speaker, because if this is a setup for carbon trading in the Pacific Carbon Trust, if that's what this is, and it's a potential that that's what this is, then it's potential to flow money through to the lobbyists and to the political sponsors of that party, where you take the development and you say you deforested there, but we're going to slide you some tax incentives, we're going to slide you some goodies to go and plant some of our crown forest over here. Why? We don't know that? Because it's going to be designed by regulation, behind closed doors, within cabinet, and who's sitting at the table talking to them about it. It's not principled. If it was principled, we'd know the details. Secondly, greenhouse gas reductions. The Minister of State for Climate Action, when he introduced this yesterday, said he'd read a National Geographic report on deforestation, and he got all shocked and awed inside himself and everything else, right? Now, climate action in the basement of the legislature, given the premier's, climate change, all that stuff, that's a whole other story, and I don't have time to tell that. But the Minister of State lives in the largest clear-cut in the province of British Columbia, an area that's been denuded by generations of British Columbians. Deforestation has been going on forever. Civilizations have disappeared because of how they've treated their forests. And as I've already indicated, this government is doing that with our crown asset. The greatest greenhouse gas release, and I challenge the Minister of State for Climate Action to come with me out into the bush and I'll show him wood waste from logging practices allowed by this government. Last year alone, in 2006, but every year since, 4 million tons of carbon has been released into the atmosphere from the wood waste that this government allows as normative logging practices now. That's the biggest thing. And so zero net deforestation, 6,200 hectares, give me a break when you're releasing that much carbon in the atmosphere, and lack of fire management strategy, Madam Speaker. Catastrophic fire events. And this government's been warned by the Forest Practices Board and the Association of BC Forest Professionals to get their act together and start thinking about climate change through the lens of no cold. You continue to put fires out like a big fire department, what do? You lay the table for pests and diseases, and you wipe your forest out with pests and disease. They've been told by the professionals to put together a strategic fire plan to stop catastrophic events by being preventative. What do? They gut the preventative programs. They don't fund community wildfire plans. They don't have a strategic plan. If the Minister of State for Climate Change is really worried about greenhouse gas emission reductions, it's not this bill. It's go talk to the Minister of Forests and say, get your act together with respect to fire and wood waste. That's what needs to happen. And of course, there's the standing dead pine release. We don't even know what that figure is. Now, principled. That's an argument we were made. It was made to us. But principled, when we go to the mountain pine beetle, we get what we got from the member from the Chaco Lakes. The diatribe about Tweeds Muir, I understand we got it from the Minister of Tourism the other day there. I have to leave the legislative precinct under those circumstances. Well, here's what the Liberal MLA task force in 2001 said to this government were the reasons for the mountain pine beetle epidemic to be the way it was. I'm going to list them briefly, but I want you to think about the language. This is only Liberal MLAs on a task force in 2001 saying this is why this epidemic is as bad as it is. First off, they say a variety of factors have contributed. Cold weather is the major pushback on mountain pine beetle, and they said successions of warm winters in the caribou dropped mortality rates for mountain pine beetle from 80% to less than 10%. That's why the population grew. So, let me see. NDP are responsible for climate change is the logic of that, I think. Is that what the government's trying to say? Mind you, they only woke up to climate change in 2007, so maybe they actually think that. The epidemic has further been aggravated by the fact that beetle infestations occur in remote areas, inaccessible, and what the member opposite, when he spoke about Tweedsmuir, and I can again show him the data, there were burns in Tweedsmuir, single tree burns, small patch burns, but the industry at the time knew that they couldn't go in there and get that. It wasn't commercially viable, and the scientists at the time said, for goodness sake, don't haul logs from the remote areas past the healthy forest into town, because guess what you do, Madam Speaker? You spread the beetle faster. There were good reasons that that was not done. But this is their own thing. Beetle infestations are occurring in remote areas, hard to get to, delays in finding them, etc. Moreover, many pine beetle infestations are occurring within the boundaries of protected areas. Such access to areas are limited. No roads. The roads are kind of necessary to get into these areas.